Thank you. Sorry about that. So anyway, we're on our surfing lessons. We're starting to build or get really connected with our surfboards. And so what's next? And then also this lovely quote by Socrates, to know thyself is the beginning of wisdom. And so to know thyself is the beginning of building our surfboards. Next slide, please. All right, so what do we mean by self-awareness? This is a term that comes through the emotional intelligence world, and it's one of the key components of emotional intelligence. And in that, it's how well you are able to acknowledge your feelings and then also discern between them and understand how you react to those emotions, and to develop over time tools and abilities to manage them and be able to manage your reactions to events. And so with that, emotional self-awareness has many components. And as you see listed here, mindfulness, the ability to reflect, discernment between emotions, and to discernment on what emotion would be right for a situation, your self-perception. And with that self-consciousness, that might be sometimes thought of as a negative term, but self-conscious is to be aware of what you are in your surroundings and to be reflective on how you're showing up and your emotional reaction to those. So that's our anchor from a definition of what we mean by self-awareness. And now we're going to go into learning about how to develop self-awareness. But first, the reason why it matters is manyfold, and a couple of the reasons are that, again, we talked about discerning how to react in a certain situation, and you can be more aware of what you need to do, including retreating if something's not feeling right. You can handle disappointment. We're always in this world going to have times when things aren't working out our way, and our ability to bounce back from that will be better with better self-awareness. Again, your ability to understand yourself can reflect back on understanding others, and also knowing when you're making assumptions versus when you actually know something, and that's through curiosity and learning of others. Again, we talked about emotional intelligence, but by becoming more self-aware, you're improving your emotional intelligence. And then here's the world of work and the world of life. You're going to get feedback. There might be difficult conversations that need to happen. And in terms of receiving them, even if the deliverer is not providing it in a way that feels constructive, the more self-aware you are, the more you can stand yourself back up, depending on if the feedback is resonating with you or not. You can at least come to some sort of grounded place when you're receiving feedback. So next, Jessica.
All right, everybody. So a big component of what we're doing is the reflection piece. But in order to reflect, we wanted to give you a worksheet that will accompany what we're doing today. So what you're going to find is posted in the chat is a fillable PDF. You don't have to do it if you do not want to, but we highly encourage it, as it's something that'll keep you focused as we move through certain exercises today. If there are any issues in accessing it, obviously feel free to chat me, but I've put my email here as well in case that's easier, and I can send it to you directly. We don't need it right at this very moment, but I do want to ensure that everybody has it and has access to it.
Great. And the first section of the worksheet is where we are talking about setting our own emotional anchors. And I would like to offer you today, you might have done this in the past, either you're reconnecting with these type of anchors, or it might be one of the first times you do it, but you're giving yourself a gift of connecting with how you connect with events in your life, whether they're challenging or they're thriving or positive. And so what we're going to do right now is to focus on both sides. Where are they challenging, and how does that resonate in our self-awareness and in our bodies? And then thriving is the same. And when things are going great, how does that resonate in our body? Or so with that, the worksheet is there, but it will be reflective afterward. And right now, I would love for you to settle into your chairs, because we're going to do an exercise where we're going to look at a positive and a challenging situation at work, and frame it in the best way you feel comfortable right now, what situation you want to think about. But think about a time, and I'm going to focus on purpose on the challenging one first, so that we can end with the positive one. So if you could sit yourself in your chairs, feel your body and your seat, or if you're standing, feel your feet on the ground, and feel, if you have your feet on the ground, feel your feet, feel your sit bones on your chair, with your back, really connect into your body, into the seat that you're in right now. Take some deep breaths. About 3 deep breaths. And I want you to think about an incident, whether it's recent or in the past, where things weren't the best. Might have been some feedback you received, a meeting that you were in, a challenging circumstance with a colleague or a client or another stakeholder. Think of that event that really stood out as something. I'm closing my eyes, and if you feel closing your eyes would be great too. Think of an event that kind of resonates, as like stands out as a thing that was not positive, and that you can bring that into and have that experience envelop you, and feel where that sits in your body, that experience. Is it in your chest? Is it in your legs? In your arms? How do your shoulders feel? How does your stomach feel? Think about that event. Feel it in your body. Now I want you to think about, what would you term that event in terms of the feeling state? An example I would give is when I did this, and it was a strong anchor for myself. I feel it in my throat. My throat closes up as if I can't speak or speak up for myself. And so when I have a throat closing moment, even now, if I'm in a meeting and my throat is closing, that's a sign for me that something's not quite right. And for me to collect my thoughts around what the circumstances and how I can get some agency in the moment, and figure out what my next steps might be. So that's our anchor for the challenging anchor. Now I want you to shake it off, move that energy out. And that's why we did that first, is we're moving that energy out, because the next is where we want to end this exercise. And so I want you to, again, take a couple of breaths after you've shaken, feel your bodies, feel the movement of your arms if you shook it out, or your legs. Again, connect with your body. Take 3 deep breaths. Now think of a moment where you felt like a rock star. Things were going great. Either it was one time or many where you felt like, I'm in the groove, I'm in the flow, I'm experiencing the events that I want to feel in my life, to feel empowered, and that I'm thriving. So think of a moment in time or many scenarios where you feel empowered and strong. Feel that in your body. Where does that sit? Feel your stomach, feel your chest, feel your shoulders, feel your legs. Feel that thriving moment, that empowered rock star moment. How does that sit in your body? What's the metaphor for that feeling state? Some might feel a Superman or woman type of experience, with your shoulders back and your hands on your hip. Mine is a reflection of sun beating down on me, the warmth of my body almost buzzing with energy, source energy from the sun. Feeling state of really being connected to all parts of myself that feel empowered. And when I'm in those moments, I'm in flow. I feel empowered. I feel confident to speak up for myself in a way that is different than feeling like I have to step into my voice. I want to, I know how to. I feel like I have all the information in the world that I need. So my sunshine moment is very much empowering me. So with that, let's revel in that. Put your shoulders up, put your hands on your hips, feel that state of thriving. And now I'd like you to spend a minute with your worksheet and put down your experience that you felt. Where was it in your body, both in the anchor moment of the challenging anchor and then the thriving anchor? Put that data down so that you can come back to it and understand the learning that you had here. But the learning is there, by the way, it's in your body. We've just connected with it. Call it your body compass. So now you have your thriving anchor and you have your challenging anchor, and those can be your North Stars for both where you're not meant to be and where you're meant to be. But put those down, put the metaphor that you've come up with, and give yourself the gift of remembrance for future reference. All right, so now we're back and we're going to do something else. So the anchor is our self-awareness of how we show up in events in our lives, and we've got some anchors. Now we're going to talk about a model that is useful for self-awareness, as the topic is. It's called the window of tolerance, and it's a model actually used in therapy, but we're not going there. This is a model more around just awareness of how you're showing up in the world, how things are affecting you. We've been through some tough times the last couple of years, and with the knowledge of this window of tolerance can help us in the future to really understand where we're sitting in our experiences and where we need to activate techniques to feel like we can get more control. So the window of tolerance is a scenario where we have built up enough events and self-awareness and just the way we show up in the world. We build a window of how we can manage events that come in our life. So if you see the heart dash points, everything's going well. You might have a bad day, but you can like shake it off. It's not really making a big deal for your overall awareness of how you're feeling. So there's the window of tolerance. And what we're trying to do is sometimes maybe during the pandemic, we were like really tight and there was not a lot of room. Something would set us off. One bad day, your Zoom meetings going haywire, and you're just like over it. And you either are bumped into what they call hyperarousal, or the opposite is hypoarousal. And hyper would be the term fight or flight would be used towards that. And then the hypo is when you freeze and shut down and you're like, I can't do anything else. I'm done. And so what we want to do is build techniques that make our window pretty wide. So an event doesn't pop us out into fight or flight. And then if we do get out of the window of tolerance, we build techniques to get back into the window of tolerance. And so I'll give a story from last fall. I was busy at work, and actually we were in performance appraisal time, and I had like 17 people to do performance appraisals for, and I had my client work and just that and the Zoom calls and dealing with my kids going back to school. I had just enough events stacked up that I was pretty tight. I feel like generally my window is pretty large, but it's getting tighter and squishing a little bit. And then my father ended up having a fall that put him in the hospital and then put him into a nursing home. He's thriving. I'm actually with him today. But it was the thing that put me into Really, I would say hypoarousal. I was like, I'm done. I can't, there's nothing, I couldn't do my work. I couldn't look at the list of people that I wanted to honor, their self-perception of their success at the company. I felt that that was my responsibility and I was shutting down. So what I was able to do, and it felt like it was intuition or divine intervention, I just happened to be on a call with somebody that I felt comfortable with, and I just cried. And I just thought, like, I am a little bit tapped out right now. I knew that I couldn't take any of those things off my plate, but that release valve actually gave me the sense of empowerment to kind of hop into my window of tolerance and be a little bit more, checklisty, or, really set timers for myself so that I could do work in a different, less sort of flow state mind, but more of a deliberate, so that I could get through the days and get my work done and still thrive in my role, even when that circumstance was not ideal. So to frame it again, window of tolerance, sometimes we're tight, sometimes it's wide and flowy, and it's really our self-awareness of where we are popped out in terms of fight or flight. If your heart's racing and you're frenetic and you can't, kind of can't get a handle on things, or the opposite where you're about to shut down, those are good self-awareness techniques. And so next up, we want you to think about some situations. I provided one. What would be your window of tolerance where you've either been in, or I would say, and it's good to have another anchoring. When do you get into hyper, or when have you been in hyper? And when have you been in hypo? And really look at that situation and reflect on that, so that again, you have an anchor of how you handle those moments. And so I'd like to give you 3 minutes to take that worksheet and really think through your hyper and hypo arousal states and what you experienced in them. I'm going to give you an update. We have about another minute.
All right, everybody. Those 3 minutes go by fast or slow at the same time. Who's to say? Um, Part of this is also in talking about not only identifying it, but then the ways and actions that you can take that can help continue to build that window of tolerance. So at times when you might be feeling that hypoarousal feeling, it can be really easy to feel like you're flatlined. You're kind of out of touch with it. You might not feel so great. So some things to keep in mind is paced breathing. Laura did a good example of this earlier and took us through the body compass. Engaging with your senses. Maybe you got to touch something, you got to walk around. You're going to have to do something maybe to re-engage yourself. Physical movement, you hear this one all the time, but this is very powerful. And then creative arts. We talk about this often. Sometimes I think we brought up at work once that a lot of us are into those adult coloring books. No harm, no foul. Those are fun. It's a great way to be creative without feeling like you have to be on your own doing something. On the other hand, the hyperarousal, you might think about the mindfulness piece, right? Playing music that you really like, really settling in, putting a candle on, taking in that, good time. Breathing, just again, reminding yourself to breathe. This can oftentimes, if we are not breathing, it makes us feel more anxious, short of breath. And last but not least is meditation. This is powerful. This one is something you don't have to do for a very long time either. A lot of times people assume that meditation, you're going to have to be sitting there for a really long time. Set a timer, just even for 1 minute, and try it. Close your eyes. If it feels good, extend it a little bit every time. As Laura mentioned, storytelling is powerful. Part of this too is also sharing personal narratives. So for myself, last year was hard, just like a lot of people have felt. But I felt a lot of pressures, and I was saying yes to a lot of things at work, which I was really excited about. So I felt myself excited about the work, passionate about what I was doing, and really diving myself into what I loved. But at the same time, in my personal life, I was going through a lot. There was a lot of changes. I was moving. I didn't have certain pets anymore, certain people in my network. And even though the work itself was fine and manageable, all of a sudden I felt myself in that fight or flight. My window of tolerance, as Laura has mentioned before, felt really, really small. So I just say this as a personal antidote of, even though sometimes the work itself we can always manage and we can be proud of what we're doing, we're human. There's things outside of work that have a direct impact on how we show up and our ability to do what we need to do. And something that really worked for me was walking. I'm a now daily walker. You might see me at 7 a.m. with a lot of the moms in the neighborhood, or grandmas, if you will, but I'm out there early. I do that for myself every day because I found myself being able to go walking, be outside, listening to music really helped me stay calm and present and manage the things that were happening outside of my life, but not feel like I had to bring them into what I was doing at work. And because of that, I feel much better this year. I can't say that I have less work than I did the year before, but the work itself this year feels like I can handle it, and that my window of tolerance is bigger. And so with that, feels like I can take on more and I can take it on well.
All right. On your worksheet, before we get to this personal resilience manifesto, your worksheet has the list of things that we put in this presentation. If you have anything that you do, or you want to remind yourself, or you heard what one of us did that isn't quite one of the bullet points, definitely put those in as a reminder of what you can do. And the more that you have available for yourself, the more when the chips are down and you're like looking at them, one will pop out maybe that you wouldn't normally think of, or mixing it up helps to keep it moving for yourself. I do want to tell a story because I'm at a beach house with my family. Again, I said my father had a fall last year and I'm celebrating with him here. And I was a little nervous about this presentation, but it wasn't because of the presentation. It's like we've got 15 people in the house and it needs to be quiet, And I was just overthinking it. And I'm like, it's going to be fine. And I just sat and a window was open and I just did this sort of sound meditation where I just, well, sound and sight because I can see the water, but I was like, just sit and hear and listen and see. And it really just lowered my blood pressure or my heart rate. And I didn't like, I was like, I can come into this not feeling frenetic. So it's a moment to moment thing, but it's also can be a lifestyle shift. It could be all of the above. And so just really put what works for you. And then, and if you have anything that's really neat that you don't think that anyone knows about, definitely throw it in the chat. And might as well put things in the chat that you've done that really have helped you. That'd be great. But while we're doing that, I want to talk about our personal resilience manifesto. I'm a big believer in setting intentions for yourself and setting some big, big goals for yourself. And a big, amazing goal that you can do for yourself is set the intention that you are moving more and more into a moment-to-moment self-awareness of how it feels to be in yourself right now and how you're showing up in whatever situation comes. It's like the waves that are coming. We've got our surfboard. We've just, kind of greased it a little more. I'm not a surfer, so I might even be using the wrong word, but basically we got it set up better, maybe put some paint on it, maybe like the look of it better. But we just connected with our surfboards and we will have waves come that might crash over us. We will have waves that we want to ride and all of that in between. And so what is a phrase or a commitment you can make to yourself? You've just dedicated about 30 minutes for yourself. How can we make that matter? And it can be by setting intention for the future. So take about 2 minutes and write down a statement in present tense. I am, I will, I have, I'm becoming. Use some words like that and put down your commitment to yourself about how you're going to show up in the world no matter what comes. One minute. All right. Thought I'd share my manifesto that I'm currently working with. I like to change things up, but right now, trying to be simple is I only do easy and I always strive for flow. And I only do easy is, or simple, sorry, easy. I like that. I always think of the easy button, but so that's one thing, but I like things to be simple. And if something's feeling complex, I step back and take a look. Is it my thinking that's getting in the way? Is it the situation that I need to set or distance myself from? Or am I outside of myself believing a worldview that doesn't enter into my own worldview? And how can I recalibrate to what is important to myself? And then I strive for flow. That is my jam. I studied that in 1990, whatever, 3 in grad school. And that was my mantra from then. And sometimes I forget about flow, but flow is when you're feeling like the work you're doing, you're just like losing track of time and you feel so connected to something almost bigger than yourself. And I always strive for flow moments. So the simple and the flow kind of are complementary to each other. And that's how I keep that's my surfboard basically. And I keep my hands on either side of that. I feel like I can confidently manage what's going on in the world. Jessica, do you have anything to share?
Awesome. I do, but instead of me sharing my own, I actually had someone in the Q&A who submitted theirs. So they gave me permission to share theirs, and I wanted to read it aloud for all of you. They said, I'm becoming kinder to myself, and in doing so, I will show up kinder to those around me. To do this, when the surfboard starts to rock, I allow myself the time and space to sit with the feeling, to use the information around me to decide how and when to react or not, and in a way that serves me and the people around me. I will give myself grace when I get it wrong, and use that as information for the next time the water gets rocky. Yeah, I want to give a little clap for that. The person who submitted that's truly wonderful. As Laura says, the goosebumps come when you read things like that, because, that's what this is all about. And I really appreciate the person who submitted this and brought it forward. I think that's a great thing to share with others, is the concept of grace. I went to a conference this weekend and they said space and grace is something that kept getting repeated. Sometimes you have to give yourself and people space and the grace to get through it, to know that it will be better on the other side. So with that, we're sort of coming into our closeout, if you will. And you may have remembered these 4 circles at the beginning. And so I wanted to reshare them with you today, because I think that we've had a great session. The connection piece, feeling more connected with ourselves in this instance. That's how we used it today. We're connecting with your heart. That's the whole point of this series. Learning the window of tolerance. This is a great model that Laura shared with us. It's on your worksheet. It's something hopefully you'll take with you. Keep in mind, maybe the next time you feel yourself maybe on the fight or flight stage, or remembering what your window of tolerance is, coping mechanisms that work for you. The reflection piece really came in hand this time with the worksheet. So whether or not this is something you actively filled out or something you looked at, we do encourage you to keep a hold of that and use it in however way it might serve you. And the last is the application. The question that I want to leave you all with today is, what is one thing you want to try, and what is one thing you want to practice? How can we do this moving forward? How can we put those personal manifestos to life and really see them besides today in the webinar? And as we close out, I'm going to turn it over to Laura to take us home.
All right. I feel like many people have seen this quote by Viktor Frankl from, and I don't know if it's in this book, but he wrote the book Man's Search for Meaning. And we just did what this quote says. We just put the space between stimulus and response and the freedom to choose in that space. And we just gave ourselves a peek into that space. And we gave ourselves some tools to use to really open up the space to be able to decide what is our response to the situation that is in front of us. Our body compass has set some anchors for us so that we have a connection to how we react in moments, and to then have discernment on what do we want to do now that we have this awareness, what do we want to do next? And then also the window of tolerance gives us a framework and kind of just gives some 3 dimension to what this statement is. So we leave you with this quote, and hopefully it helps with that surfboard experience that we just had today. And I would just love to give a little bit more context about ourselves and Evans as a whole. We have this great webinar series that we talk about the heart, the art, and the science of leadership. And we run webinars and also workshops that cover these topics. And so the heart is really kind of connected. What we did today was a heart activity. The art is more looking at behaviors that influence us to be successful leaders and to show up as whole people and honor other whole people. And then the science is really skills that we can use to implement and to connect with our teams and our organizations and other stakeholders in a way that really makes us effective leaders. So we invite you to, if you want to know more about our webinars, we have an email that's being put in the chat, or a link to our website where you can sign up to be on our email list so that you'll get first news of when we're going to launch any webinar or workshop. So if you'd like that, that's your call to action, I guess, as it were. And we'd love to see you in the future and see not only Jessica and myself, but we have a host of amazing consultants at Evans that you would be exposed to over time if you joined into our webinars. I think with that, we're calling it done. We're going to take our surfboards out of the ocean, wipe them down, and carry them off to whatever our next event is. I really want to celebrate you for taking the time for yourself and to be all in whatever way worked for you for this time. But you've, I would say, changed your DNA just enough that would put you closer and closer to your self-awareness and to living and thriving as a solid leader, and that you've opened your heart just a little more to navigate the world as it is today.
Thank you, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Bye.